Hello, hobby friends. I'm Jason, and you're joining me here on Level Up Hobbies. Today, I'm going to go ahead and jump into my topic, and that is showing you how I freehanded the Deathwing logo onto the back of this cloak. Now, if I'm doing this, I like to have just an overall idea of what I'm going to be painting on the surface. It doesn't have to be exactly what's in my mind, it's just an idea so I know where I'm going to start. It could end looking something totally different than what I imagined, but that's okay, just as long as you know what you're going to be starting with. And with that, you want to take a dark color of really the main color that's going to be in the freehand. So with this, I'm painting a red Deathwing logo onto the cloak. So I'm taking a dark red and I thin it out, and then I lightly sketch in an overall design of what I'm going to be painting on here. Now, when you're sketching out your design here, you really need to take into account the surface that you're painting it onto. Because sketching a design onto a cloak such as this is much different than sketching it onto a flat armor panel of, say, like an Imperial Knight. You're doing the same thing, but you have to take into account all of the folds and ripples in the cloaks or cloth that will distort the image that you're painting. So you have to paint, into those folds and everything to make it look realistic. You also want to take into account the symmetry of the item that you're painting, or the asymmetry. As you can tell here, I'm not sketching the sword in directly underneath the power pack because the cloak itself runs all the way over to one of the arms. So it is more towards the right side of the figure than it is directly in the middle. So you want to make sure that whatever image you're painting follows the symmetry of the item that you're painting on. And you can see right here that it's not very pretty as you're sketching it on, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be. My cloak, I intentionally left it just the black base coat. I have not highlighted it up, so if I make mistakes, I can just go back in with that base color and touch it up, and that's what I planned on doing. So you can see I made like guide marks to show where these feathers are going to flow and what. So go ahead and just plan out your image, plan out your design, paint it in there, and have that base color just in the ready, so you can go ahead and when you're done with this part, you can touch it up and clean up all of those lines and really define what that shape is gonna finally look like. Now, once you've got that initial shape finalized, you can go in and start adding in the first set of highlights. And the highlights here kind of do two parts. One, you are exactly as it said, adding a highlight, but you're also kind of defining the shape a little bit more. You're just defining it more in depth. So that initial color gives you the overall shape of the design, but once you start adding these highlights, you can build up areas and just make it more three-dimensional than it is just the one color on the cloak here. Now to do this, I take my highlight color, in this case it is bright Pyrrole Red from Pro Acryl, and I thin it down and actually make a glaze out of this so I can build up my color just very gradually. I don't want it to be over the top too quickly. I build that color up until I'm happy with it, and then I can move on and just define that shape even more than what it is here. Now I'm going in and defining those highlights just a tad bit more. With this, I took that bright Pyrrole Red and a bright orange, both from Pro Acryl, and mixed them about 50-50 just to make that highlight pop a bit more. And I'm going in and just hitting it, higher up on the edges and just really defining those highlights. And you can see I'm really picking out like those folds of the cloth where it's going to be the highest, out of the recesses, and just making those ridges pop. All right, now I take the bright orange and thin it out again, and I'm using this just as the final highlight on all of the image here. I'm doing some hard edge highlighting on most of the image, like the pinions on the wing, and then also the edges of the sword, just to define it and give it that nice sharp kind of glistening edge. Just work this over your image until you're happy, and this will really be the final highlight. You could probably go a little bit lighter, a little bit more definition on the line work if you wanted to. I thought this turned out perfect though. And here I'm just doing some final detail work on the Deathwing symbol. It's the broken winged sword. So I'm just adding the crack across the blade and then adding a final highlight on that. And here is the finished product. So I added, obviously highlights to the cloak, and then also weathering to the base of the cloak, using some glazes of just a couple different shades of brown, just to simulate dirt and grime buildup during battle and stuff. But the freehand here is one of the largest that I've done to date. I've mostly just done small detail work, like glyphs and checkers, just small stuff to add detail to my models. But I was very happy with how this turned out. And I'd really like just to say that if you're wanting to try some freehand on your models, just do it. Because, the worst that can happen is you have to repaint it. Or if you're worried about ruining a good paint job, just practice on another spare model. And if you're wanting to do some freehand work or just detail work, like higher end detail work, just do it. I talked myself out of doing it for years just because I was worried about ruining the model that I already painted. But the only problem with talking yourself out of challenging situations is you will never get better. So my advice is to just do it and challenge yourself. It will make you a better modeler, painter, everything. So yeah, that's pretty much my advice on that one. And also, as a final note, the recipe and the techniques that I use here are not just exclusive for painting red on black. It's really just the technique. If you want to paint on anything, if you want to paint a green symbol, just all you have to do is find a dark color and then a medium highlight and then an extreme highlight. That's all you really need. It's kind of the same as just painting any other model. Just you're drawing it yourself. You're not just painting the model. And on that note, I'm going to go ahead and sign off here. I'm Jason. This is Level Up Hobbies, and I've just freehanded a Deathwing logo for you guys. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up. Give me a subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that bell icon so you can be notified whenever I publish new material. And don't forget, the most important thing of all is build, paint, and play tabletop games. Thanks, guys.